Awesome, great. Um, Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our virtual hearing for the Fall River Historical Commission. It is Thursday, November 17th. It is 6:02 p.m. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. May I get a roll call, please?
Richard Mancini, present through media.
Connie Soul, present.
Liz DeBlock, present.
Oh, there's Joyce.
There's Joyce. Jason Bouchard Naraki, present.
Yeah, all set.
Okay. Joyce, you're here? All right. We do have two open slots. I received a letter of resignation from Kristen Cantera Oliveira. I just received that yesterday. And she writes, Dear Chairman Bouchard Naraki, it is with a heavy heart that I am giving you my resignation from the Fall River Historical Commission effective today. Unfortunately, due to time constraints, I am no longer able to commit the time necessary to the commission. I have enjoyed my last 8 years on the commission, and I am looking forward to seeing all of the good things that you will continue to do in the future for the betterment of our city. I thank every one of you for the opportunity to have served with you and for giving of your time and talents as well to carry out the goal of preserving the historic structures and locations in our city. I will still be here supporting all of you from the sidelines and will continue to help in any way that I can. I wish you all the best. Sincerely, Kristen Cantera Oliveira. So we do have two open seats on the commission. Kristen was also our appointee for the Community Preservation Commission. So I will, once I have this submitted to City Clerk, I will reach out to the Community Preservation Committee regarding that. So likely at our next meeting, we will have to appoint somebody to be the Historical Commission appointee for that, for the CPC. All right. Next up, item 3A, for the minutes for October 18th, I have not actually completed those, but I will have those ready at the next hearing. Do we have any citizen input? No. Okay.
Regarding our agenda, I'd
Mhm.
like to take some, I'd like to take, say, 5B and bring it up to the top.
Okay.
And also 8A
Okay.
and also 7B.
Okay.
We could change that around and bring it to the top so that our guests don't have
Okay.
to wait too long.
All right. Is that, are you making a motion
I'm
to
making-
move those items?
I'll second that motion.
All right, so I have a motion and a second to move the following items, 5B regarding 289 Pleasant Street, 7B regarding, I'm sorry, 8A, the local historic districts with Jen Doherty from the Mass Historical Commission, and 7B, Historical Commission candidate Tanya DeMello into that order.
Yes,
So
please.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
I-
Aye.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna move 5B, 289 Pleasant Street, and that would be Shannon. Corey, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
No problem. So now, what are the steps? Do I,
So this is
Clueless.
regarding the chimney that's on boiler house number 2 for the Union Mill. Or the
Yes.
smokestack. Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
And actually, that boiler house is not in existence. That's been,
Okay,
that was demolished years ago. So it's just a freestanding brick stack at this point.
okay,
We did have an architect's report done, which I had forwarded to you previously. We did that after noticing that some of the vertical cracks in the stack are actually expanding and the bottom is starting to bow out slightly. Because it is directly adjacent to the main pedestrian walkway for the employees to get in and out of the building.
Mhm.
We felt like it's probably better to remove it before it falls and, we end up with all kinds of issues. It was the opinion of the architect and of his report that it should be removed. Because even though it's thick, I guess there's a bunch of soot inside that's been wet from precipitation and gotten moist. So the mortar is
Mhm.
popping out and the bricks are cracking.
Okay,
So we are seeking to be able to go for a building permit, demo permit to get this knocked down, and we're looking for your permission to do that.
so it would be the 6-month demolition delay, so you're looking for permission um, to 6 months delay? Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Okay, and I did see, I pulled up the Form B for the Mass Historical Commission's inventory form.
Mhm.
And it looks like that chimney was also, it was originally approximately, say, 150 feet tall, and at one point it had actually been shortened to about 100, or maybe, I think it's currently, I forget what
I
the
think
height
it's about somewhere between 80 and 90 feet now. Yes, it
Right.
was shortened.
Right, so it had been shortened, but it's not connected to anything. It's not serving any
No,
function whatsoever. Okay,
no, it's completely freestanding.
okay. Are there any questions, concerns from the board regarding this?
Yeah, I got a question, Shannon. Hi, I'm Rick.
Hi.
This was an architectural firm, and not knocking that, but normally you've got a structural engineering firm or someone well-versed in smokestacks. And I was wondering why you chose to get an architectural firm to do structural engineering work.
I actually had this architect do it. He works with a lot of engineers, but he has done a lot of work on our buildings in our complex. He's very familiar with millwork, with stacks. It's really his wheelhouse. And after speaking to Glenn Hathaway, he had suggested I get a report as quickly as possible. So to turn it around quick, I went with this firm that I knew, and I knew what they were doing and knew the information, rather than trying to track down an engineer that I'd be cold calling and it would take months.
Mhm. Okay, well, yeah. All right, well, I would like to, would you have any intentions if that's a rather expensive endeavor to remove that chimney, particularly in that location because of the buildings and
Yes.
that are in that vicinity. So if it could be repaired at a lesser cost, is that something that you're interested in doing?
I actually looked at prices on doing both, and to repair it, it was going to be more than twice as much, because the entire thing needed to completely be repointed. They thought that maybe some of the bricks that were cracked and were going to need to be replaced. And they weren't sure if it was going to even be able to be done. The fear that I had and that my architect had was, as we're trying to repair this thing, the bottom was going to blow out, because that's where all the damage is. The top section, actually where it was previously shortened, is actually in decent shape.
Yeah, but you've not had a structural engineer look at it, so.
No,
where
I
are you
have
getting
not.
This advice from,
From the architectural firm who did the report.
okay. All right, well, okay, well, those are my questions. I would certainly rely on a good structural engineer versed in stacks to make a determination. Architects are great, but they're in designing buildings, not in structural integrities, so. Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Understood. Yep.
At some point, the opening to the stack has been bricked in and enclosed, which is where you would clean the ash out. When was that done?
It was done prior to me being at the property, and I've been there for 25 years. So I don't know when it was done. I imagine when the boiler room that was attached to that was demolished, I imagine that that was done at that time.
Mhm.
The inventory form for the property, I believe that was done, I want to say 1980, either late 70s or 1980, 81, somewhere around there. That's about the time that we had a lot of, like, across the city, there was a citywide survey that was done. So somewhere in between that and 25 years was when the boiler house number 2 came down. Are there any plans for the site at all, or?
No, actually, we're just gonna take it down to level and flatten it out. It'll just
Okay.
be an open area.
Okay. Are there any other smokestacks on the property that are of similar conditions, or is this just the only one that's of, like, urgency?
This is the only one on this property.
Okay.
There
Okay.
are, I mean, if you're looking at the whole mill complex, because they are owned differently, there are other stacks on the complex. Those,
Mhm.
however, are in much better condition.
Yeah, okay. All right, because this is part of the Union Mills, and then across the way is the Durfee Mill, which is
Correct.
yeah, it's a larger complex. Okay. All right. Any other questions at all regarding this?
Can I just point something out real quick? So looking on Macris, it looks like there is a preservation restriction on that property.
Okay.
So to do any work on that property, I'm not sure who the holder is. I'm not on our network right now, so I'm not sure if it's us or another organization. But you would need approval of, like, I'm assuming you would need approval of whatever that organization is under the preservation restriction.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you, Jen. That's one thing that we have. We're in the process of trying to get a list of all structures in the city that have preservation restrictions. We know a handful of buildings downtown have those. When it comes to the mills, because everything's literally every structure on the properties are inventoried. It's not the easiest process right now to get from registry of deeds, at least.
So there is a search function in Macris where you can search for
Okay.
preservation restrictions. So you can put in
Yeah.
Fall River preservation restriction and it'll pull everything up.
Okay.
It doesn't say who the holder is in Macris, but if
Okay.
you ask me, I can let you know who it is because we have it on our back end who the holder
Okay.
is.
Okay, and I might be able to, because it's a restriction on the deed, I can probably, with the plat and lot, I can go through the registry and figure out who
Yep.
that is owned by.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so in that case, Shannon, we're gonna need a little time to figure out what the restrictions are on that, and who the holder is. I know the urgency because the smokestack is structurally compromised. But we do need to at least do our due diligence with that. I was completely unaware that there was a restriction on that property.
okay, so I basically have to wait until you guys get back to me, or?
I
My
would,
concern is this stack is literally feet from 2 buildings. It's right over an entryway.
Hmm.
I've kind of been biting my nails since August to get on this agenda. The building department kind of bounced me around. I'm just, you know what I mean? I feel like I've been
Yeah.
waiting and waiting and waiting.
Right.
Oh,
I would make a recommendation that Shannon, that you, in order for you to feel more comfortable and your board and all parties involved, that you get a structural engineer that specializes in this, and have a survey done. Then you could have more reliable data. And maybe they might come up with a solution that might put you at ease.
Okay, I can definitely look into doing that and see how long it takes to get that report done. Like I said, I'm just nervous that someone's gonna get hurt.
We have had here in the city, two similar situations where the buildings, the stacks were condemned, they were going to fall. And then we had engineering studies done. The first one was talking about 220-mile-an-hour winds would maybe upset the stack, and that it was very, very stable, yet it had been condemned. So, and there's
Well,
two
on a
stacks
windy
in the
day,
city
we
that
have
have fallen
bricks
in.
falling.
Pardon?
On a windy day, we have bricks falling.
Well, I would just recommend that you do that, but that's entirely
Okay.
up to you. But that's entirely up to you.
I will bring that up definitely with the board.
And we can, once we have all of our, all the information regarding the restrictions on it, in the past, we've been able to do emergency hearings as well. So, we, depending on the flexibility of the board and also what the availability is for the meeting slots, we can certainly
Mhm.
arrange something.
So in the 20+ years that you've been there, has there been any maintenance done to the stack to prevent?
There was some repointing done, but it's not holding because the bricks are just crumbling. So even though the middle part of the stack was all repointed probably about 15 or so years ago, it's just not lasting.
Okay. All right.
Well, I don't know what's falling, but it could be the laminate like we've had in some other situations where it's the laminate brick on the outside that is actually falling and not, because it is like a very thick structure. I don't know how.
Yeah, we did have core testing done,
Mhm,
and it is very, very thick.
yeah,
Okay.
all right. So we'll table
Okay.
this until we,
Yes, it'll be, let's
Okay.
table it. And Shannon, I'll be in contact with you once I have more information. In the meantime, if there's a way to get a structural engineer to look at that,
I'll hit the phone book in the morning.
yeah. The architect that you dealt with too may have engineers. They should have engineers at
Yeah.
least.
No, I'm
Available.
sure I'll find someone.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so
Well,
much.
thank you very much. I appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So now the next item that was put out of order, that was 8A, local historic districts. We have Jennifer Doherty, a local government program coordinator with the Mass Historical Commission. Jen, thank you very
Hello.
much for joining us.
Yep, of course.
So we're trying to, we have one local historic district, and that's the Highlands Local Historic District with 47 houses or structures in the district. And we are actively looking to expand. Whether we expand that district, we create additional districts. So if you have like an overview of what what the process is like, and that'll be.
Yep. So I will note, so on November 30th, hold on a second. On November 30th, I do have a establishing local historic districts workshop. You can sign up for it on MHC's website. If you can't attend live over Zoom, you can sign up to receive the recording afterwards. So, you can watch it either way. So I'm not going to go through that whole presentation right now. Obviously, if you want to see that, you can there. But I will share the screen that kind of has all the steps in it, and just sort of very briefly go through these.
Okay.
So can everyone see that?
Yes.
So establishing a local historic district, it's the same process, whether you are establishing a new district or expanding an existing district, you would go through the same process. And in Fall River, because you all already exist as the existing Historic District Commission, you will take the lead. You don't have to set up a separate study committee. If you don't want to, you can choose to set up a separate study committee, but otherwise you can act as a study committee for the new district or for the expansion.
Okay.
So to begin with, I always tell folks, do a lot of planning, think about what you're going to do. Look to a master plan or a preservation plan if you have one that has recommendations about potential local historic districts. Those are always very helpful to kind of give you some support, some sort of, legal background, all those kinds of things to say, this is why we're looking to make this a local historic district. And then, of course, inventory forms. Inventory forms are helpful throughout the process. And then once the district is established, during the process, they can give you information about the district, help you do outreach to property owners. And then once the district is established, it's a good base of information for making decisions about the properties. Then you kind of know what's significant about them, what the important pieces of property are. So it's not required that you have new inventory forms for anything that you're looking to do for a local historic district, but we do certainly recommend it, that you at least have, a good base of information, within the past 10 or 20 years or so, if it's been surveyed within there, that's fine. But just really making sure you have some good information available about the district, the buildings, the history. So establishing the process then kind of is to establish a district. Again, you can act as a study committee. I do recommend that existing HDCs sort of take a formal vote to kind of formally start the process. Again, it's not required, but it does kind of say, hey, we're looking at this area as a potential local historic district. So then you get to work. You just kind of think through the process of a local historic district, looking at the boundaries of the district, looking at what you might review in terms of the bylaw. There's different exemptions in Mass General Laws, Chapter 40C that communities can adopt. So if you would want to adopt some different exemptions from your existing district, that would be something to think about. Thinking about design guidelines, again, what the district is or is not going to review. And then all of that eventually goes into a preliminary study report. And so I do have a new preliminary study report template that includes all of the pieces that are required. So you can work right in it. It's a Word document, but it goes through everything that's required in there. Eventually that preliminary study report, once you're ready, it gets submitted to me and to your local planning board. It's important to note that both the MHC and the planning board, neither of us really have a role in the local historic district process beyond the fact that you submit the study report to us. So the MHC, neither the MHC nor the planning board can say no to a district. We can't stop a district. In the legislation, it really is just review and comment. So, I present the districts at our monthly commission meetings. The commission, votes, yes, we recommend that Fall River establish this district. That's about it. So once you submit the study report to us and to the planning board, you do have to wait 60 days. Again, that kind of gives us that time to review and comment. It seems like you guys aren't in a rush, but for communities where there is kind of a rush, a push, something's under demolition delay, this can be that biggest chunk of time if you are moving along through all the other phases. But it is something that you do have to account for in your process. Also, you're a city, so your city council that's going to vote on this meets more regularly than a town meeting that's only going to meet 2 times a year. So again, that's a little more flexible for you guys. So after that initial 60 days, you have to hold a public hearing. You can hold other public meetings and other public hearings sort of within this time period or even before then, even before you submit the study report. But this is sort of the official required public hearing that you do have to hold under state law. So there's, like any public hearing, there's notice requirements in terms of reaching out to property owners, posting the notice, things like that. Then you would finalize the study report. This is essentially taking anything from any comments from the public hearing, from the MHC, from the planning board. If there's any changes that you've made to the district, if you decide you want to change the boundaries or change the exemptions or anything like that, that would be noted in this new final version of the study report. And then that's ultimately what gets submitted to City Council for a vote. So it is a 2/3 vote at City Council. And then you have your district if you manage to get that 2/3 vote. And then of course, if it's signed by the mayor, if you require a mayor's signature, that would be the other piece of it. And then it is important, you do have to record your district at the registry of deeds. That's an important step that makes it final and legal. And then you have a new local historic district. So obviously seems very quick and easy when I explain it, within the span of 2 minutes there. But there are a lot of steps in there. Again, I'm always here to answer questions. I can answer questions right now as well. But once you get into the process, I work very closely with our communities that are looking to establish new districts.
Excellent, thank you. I do have a question regarding, and I may have asked this because I did attend one of your past talks for establishing the districts regarding the boundaries. We were always with the understanding that the boundaries can should not run down the middle of a street, that they should, they can't form a corner, so they need to include the properties across the street. In the case of, at least in Fall River, we have some buildings that take up full-size blocks that might not be contributing. And historically, there may not have been anything, multiple buildings were never there, that sort of a thing, like a mill, for example. So in that case, how stringent is it for a boundary or the boundaries to run where they should be?
The boundaries are really up to you as a community, and they can kind of be whatever you want, but we do make a few recommendations. So obviously under state law, you can have a single property local historic district, and then you can have the entire island of Nantucket, which is an entire local historic district. And then anything within there, you can make a local historic district. The goal of a local historic district is not only to protect the physical building itself, but it's also to, and this is in the state law, to protect and improve the surroundings and the setting of that building, because that is important to the character of a historic building. If you have a row of houses and one of them gets knocked out and you put a parking lot in there, that's impacting that character of that overall streetscape. It's not just a loss of that one building. So that's why we do encourage communities to consider both sides of the street, consider buildings that are not necessarily historic right now, include vacant lots, parking lots, things like that, because things could happen on those parcels that is ultimately going to impact the character of the district. So it's certainly up to you. I mean, obviously, if it's, it's a big shopping mall or something like that, that may be something that you would want to exclude because it's not entirely relevant. But it's something to kind of think about as you go through that study report process, thinking about what the boundaries are, what the character of the district is, what the history of the district is, and whether or not you would include that.
Great.
Jen, I've got a question regarding, I heard one building area. Would we have to go through all of the processes, including the city council vote and the mayor's signature, to
Yep.
put one piece of property, whether it be a home or, okay, good.
Yep,
Thank
it's the same process for one building or an entire community.
Okay.
Somerville is kind of the poster child for single building local historic districts. They've gone through that process about 160 times to make single building districts. They have them
Right.
everywhere in the city. But yep, it's the same process. Again, because you're a city, it can be a quicker process. When you're a
Sure.
town and you're waiting for town meeting to come up, it's a bit of a longer process. But again, you just have kind of that 60-day period in there, and then you public hearing, city council, you can kind of move
Oh,
through it
wow,
pretty
interesting,
quickly.
huh?
So,
Yeah, interesting. Okay, thank you. But we've spoken about that many times, and I guess we weren't quite sure. So thank you for clarifying that.
Great. I had one more question and now I can't I can't remember what it was. Regarding the Form Bs or the inventory. So what sort of requirements? I know they've changed, versus what we have seen from the 80s. Obviously, and even after that, the level of research it's more in depth.
Yeah, so we do recommend now that communities work with a consultant who is familiar with completing the inventory forms, because we do have higher standards for them than they had in the 80s. In the 80s, we did have a lot of volunteers doing them, but now we are looking for someone trained in architectural history, trained in completing the forms. It really, we look at the inventory forms now not just as here's some information about a building. but really as a planning document. Here's something that you can use to think about the buildings in your community and the overall history of your community. And so we want someone who can kind of connect the buildings to the overall history of Fall River and really, make it clear why they're important, why they're significant. And then we also, obviously, we have the internet now. They didn't have the internet in the 80s. There's a lot of information out there. Some folks will do deed research now because all of that is digitized in most counties. And just the availability of local histories, family histories, genealogy information, census records. We're up to 1950 now in the census. So having access to all of those things and having someone who knows where to find all of those things can be really important. We do have our survey and planning grant program. Unfortunately, you just missed the application deadline. It was this Monday, but for next year or something, if you're thinking about doing a survey project, that can be kind of one way to get a good chunk of survey forms done, is coming in for a grant through that program. And then we can give a couple names if you're going to do a project. We can give you a few names of consultants who might be appropriate or might be interested in the kind of project you're looking at, the kind of buildings that you're looking to survey.
Okay, excellent, thank you. If we were to do a local historic district, it does not necessarily need to be on the National Register already. It could be a standalone. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, they are two completely separate things, two completely separate processes, two completely separate sets of regulations and impacts and everything like that. There is often overlap just because those tend to be the more significant areas in a community, and those are the areas that they want to protect or honor. But one does not imply the other, one does not require the other. You can do one or the other. It's certainly up to you. Just the local historic district does provide more direct local protection, whereas the National Register is largely just an honorary designation.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone have any other questions for Jen?
Yeah, well, actually, Connie, I just wondered if we have from Connie any of the lessons learned from the Highland District.
You mean the process that we went through?
Yes, the process, which I know was lengthy, but
Well,
any
it
of
was
the,
lengthy because it was all volunteers. We didn't even have a historic commission back then that was functioning, I don't think. So we were kind of a standalone. The Preservation Society took a hold of it, and they're the ones that did the surveys, sent out the flyers to the neighbors, to the homeowners, tried to do all kinds of education to the public. It was lengthy because it was, we were doing it with guidance from the Mass Historic Commission. And when we started, we were doing photos of the homes using film, photo film. So, I think the process now, even though it's lengthy, it's easier to get the information, like you said, Jen. A lot of things are online, and so I don't think we can probably compare. But we learn as you go, even with this process of starting a new one, and then there's Jen, who we can call.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Excellent. Any other questions for Jen while we have her? No?
Yeah,
All right.
anything else? All right. Yeah, so I'm always here. If anything else comes up, let me know. I'll check on the PR tomorrow when I'm on our network. I can see who the holder is, and I can let you know for that smokestack as
Oh,
well.
that's awesome.
Excellent.
So,
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. That was
Great input.
thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you.
very much.
Thank you for sharing your
you.
time and that wonderful presentation of the format to get from here to there. That was great. I snapped a photo. I hope I didn't blind you with the flash, but
Yeah.
I've got it. Thank you so much.
Good. All right. Well, thank you all. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you so much, Jen. Great. So the next item that we had moved was item 7B, the candidate for the Historical Commission, and we have Tanya here tonight. Thank you very much for joining and for
Thank
your
you for having
patience. You got a little
Of
crash
course.
course in in
I know.
creating a district. So
Welcome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
welcome, Tanya.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'm a Fall River native. I always had a love of history. I do have a degree in history. I love to study it. I love old houses. I do live in an old apartment in the Lower Highlands. But yeah, I'm always fascinated, and I love to, volunteer my time where I can, helping out folks doing great things like you guys. Seems like you do a lot of great work for the city. So I work over in Newport at Newark, the Naval Undersea Warfare Center. I do some coordination type work for them. It's really interesting. Another love I have is for the military, so it's rewarding work as well. That's about it. Kept it kind of simple. So
excellent.
all right. Okay, well, you gave a good description. I was gonna throw this question out at you as, why would you want to join us? And what were your intentions? But you just right in there. Good job.
yeah, I think I'm still trying to understand kind of the dynamics of what you guys do, just to get a better idea of how much time, if I'd be able to dedicate the time you need. That's kind of a question I have as well. So just to make sure it's a good decision, and I don't want to, leave you guys with another open spot as well. So
This, I will say, I've been on the board for a little time. But I will say that this is not a once a month meeting.
okay,
If you get involved in this commission, and I believe right now we're gonna be in a growth process also.
okay,
It takes time, you're generally spending a few hours a week minimally if you're indulging in this properly, just doing research, just checking some of these buildings. If committee issues come about and you're on there, there's work to be done. So rest assured that this is it's not a 40-hour-a-week job, but it's not a 2-hour a month endeavor either.
Okay.
You're gonna be spending a little bit of time, and if we get into expanding the districts, that's going to be time consuming also. So be prepared to get your feet wet and wear out some shoe leather.
okay. No, I appreciate it. I like, the more information I receive, the better decision I can make. So, and if for some reason I don't decide to join the board, are there ways I could still volunteer with you guys, or how does that work?
So we do, well, we haven't gotten to the point where as Rick said, we are in a growth, we will be hopefully soon in a growth stage. And we haven't really had too much involvement, at least in my time. I've been on the board since 2019, where we've been, meeting with the public, and there is a bit of involvement where we, as the commission, we work alongside the Community Preservation Committee, and oftentimes we have to review projects that they're funding, and that's something that we do on the committee. In terms of volunteer work outside of that, not a whole lot. We might have a need once we, if we have to have public meetings for to expand the districts, and I think that would more, like as Connie said, with the initial Highlands Local Historic District, the Preservation Society was spearheading that, and that's where I can see there will be more volunteer work, or at least involvement with them. But I'm not sure I'm not sure if there
I
would be.
I could give you a little, I think, a little insight on a project that I think is going to get off the ground a bit. Uh, We have some monies put aside by the CPC, and it's been approved, and it's sitting there, and it was going to be used, it's being used, it will be used to do what we call Form Bs, and that's do an assessment of properties, and you get the names and all the history and a little photo, and we submit all of that. And those Form Bs are very crucial to even doing the district. But there's an area in the city that's really needs to, it's the oldest part of the city and needs that to be accomplished. Now, it's, and Jason can attest to this one better than I am sure, but we'll hire a professional, but we're gonna need some people also to do legwork in this. And the half of Fall River is, the center of Fall River is somewhere in the North Watuppa Pond. So there's as much land to the east of the Watuppa Pond as there is to the west. And that land has never been documented. There's a lot of historic value there. And we have nothing documented that shows all of that. So that again is going to be a Form B area where we can determine who owned it, how far back it goes, what kind of history is involved in that. And that's going to require a lot of legwork and a lot of digging into and research. And if history is your thing, that might prove to be something you might say, yeah, look, if you're a member, that's wonderful. If you're not a commissioner with us and you want to assist, that would be wonderful also. So you asked the question. I hope that answered your particular question.
Yes,
There
thank
is
you.
work
Okay,
that can be accomplished not being a member.
okay, that's great to know. Thank you.
I don't want to scare you, Tanya.
Okay,
But we're able to call into play other city departments. We're not alone here. When Rick talks about this exploratory mission, we can call in the city forester. We can call in a number of different departments. I'm a history major too, and I know that you excel in documentation. I think I read somewhere that you're a configuration management specialist.
oh, I
Did I
did that
read that?
prior to this position, yeah, but I
Yeah,
do a lot of work. with
And
doc-
nobody knows what a configuration management specialist does, but I know because I worked in Newport and I classified your job.
Ah,
So I
perfect.
know that you excel in documentation and you know how to guide us through those hoops and loops. So I want to support Rick's project, but also realize that one of the things that makes us visible is calling in those departments and making sure that this is a team. This is a team effort in the city of Fall River. We're not working uphill here and showing up at the city council with nothing behind us. We need those departments to support us. And I know Jason works well with all of them. So we have good leadership here too.
That's very true. The planning board will be a big part of this endeavor also. So,
Mhm.
you know, so now that you got it more than you asked for, you're probably on overload.
Can I jump in real quick too? So I had just joined the board back in August, so I'm pretty new. And I don't want Rick to scare you away with the time commitment, because so far for me, it's been very manageable. I know I'm still new, I haven't seen everything there is to see, but I think it's what you make of it, kind of what Rick was saying. Like, if you want it to take up more of your time, you can get more involved, but also if you don't have the time to invest in it, you can kind of take more of a backseat. So don't feel like you have to go 100% from the beginning.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we've had a little bit of reading to do over the weekend, and that was with our design guidelines, which we're pretty excited about. That's on our agenda tonight. And in talking with other communities, like Newport, I think New Bedford might have some, I don't know, but Providence, they don't have design guidelines for their historic district commissions, which, that says something. And we have some ready to go, and it'll guide the homeowners, building owners with maintenance, with sensitive restoration, repairs, that sort of a thing for their historic properties. And that's had a little bit of work to do over the weekend. But that's, on occasion we'll have, like I said, we'll have projects that we will have to review for letters of support from the CPC, the Community Preservation Committee. And they have their waves where they have their funding cycles, and they have to have their letters of support in. And so that's where we might have a little extra work that we might have to do, a little bit more reading. I've been trying to, as they come in, forward everything over to the board. This agenda was kind of busy, but sometimes our meetings are pretty streamlined, where we don't really have too much going on, just some old business that we have to discuss. Other meetings like tonight, it's a little bit more detailed. Yep.
I also think the basic information is in the city documents. And I think Jason could send you an email on that. Those ordinances that are in place, once you get familiar with the basics and stick with them, you don't really have to master the whole world in Massachusetts or the whole MHC documentation. But if you can get clarity on the city documentation, you can call that into play anytime, because most people don't read the city documents. And if you're smart about it and start quoting them, you can go right ahead with it.
Yeah, we're in the process of, or the city is in the process of updating their website. So we have, what's on there right now is there's some outdated things. We wanted, they still have the old ordinance for the Historical Commission. We just recently merged in the last couple of months with the Historic District Commission. So that was a redo of the city ordinance just for that. Unfortunately, the information that's on the website is not current, but it will be hopefully in the next month. But I'm happy to forward any information over to you so you can see. But yeah, it's fun. Preservation's fun. So,
Well, thank you for all the information.
absolutely.
Appreciate
Okay,
it.
welcome aboard.
Yeah, and I'm sure Jason's gonna welcome you to stay on board if you'd like to see what we're gonna be digging through, but that's entirely up to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments for Tanya? No?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
What do you think at this point, Tanya? How do you feel?
I definitely like to volunteer. I'm just not sure about the time. It's more of time fluctuations with work, depending on projects. And I would definitely like to volunteer, though. I think I might be leaning more toward that. I'm just worried that I won't be able to dedicate all the time, depending on what's going on both sides. I think that's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
Yeah, and that's totally fair. Yeah.
I apologize. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Oh,
really
no.
appreciate all the information, though.
No, thank you very much. I mean, it's yeah, we have it. There can be some things that are a little time consuming, but yeah, and especially once we get going on expanding districts or creating new ones, or even just getting the new Form Bs done up for the Steep Brook neighborhood, that's going to involve a bit of review on our part, just to make sure that everything is as it makes sense, it's as accurate, all the sources have been researched, and
Sure.
just double checking all the work.
Mhm.
Excellent.
Yeah, like I said, I'd love to volunteer with you guys. I think that, just to be fair, and ensure that I'm not leaving you, with extra work to do. That's my main concern. So,
Well, thank you
Okay.
very much.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for your honesty.
oh, of course. And I appreciate all the information again. It was a pleasure meeting all of you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I'd like to make a motion to go back to our agenda.
Okay. I have a motion to go back to order. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
So that brings us down to 5A, which is 109 House Street. I'm pronouncing that right. It's in the south end. This is the Charlton Mill. This is actually developing. I received an email from Carrie over at licensing, and she was asked about an outbuilding, whether the property, if it was on the registry, and she wasn't sure which building it was. It was not the main mill structure. It was one of the outbuildings. And I did forward over to her the inventory form from the Mass Historical Commission's database. The whole property is inventoried. So if the owners wanted to remove anything, they would have to come before the Historical Commission. There will be a 6-month demolition delay. I don't know exactly what they want to do with the property. And then on top of that, earlier this week, I met with Ken Fiola from the Bristol County Economic Development Agency. I think that's what the name, I can't remember off the top of my head, as well as Sarah Page. She is with the Fall River Redevelopment Authority. And let's see. And so there's some, I'm sorry, I'm jumping around, but that's regarding some expansion work. But the Charlton Mill did come up. I believe it's the owner wants to do some rehab, but the main complex is going to stay. It's just one of the outbuildings, possibly the boiler house might be coming down. But I don't have that information right now. But just to keep on the radar that something's happening.
We should also check and see if that building received any prior funding from CPC or the state.
Yes, and I'm also going to take a look too, now that since we had Jen on earlier, to see if there's any restrictions on that.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly what I'm referring to. Yeah.
because that was a complete surprise that there was a restriction on the Union Mill. Good.
It's all in the timing.
I know, but something will be coming up. So that's it on item 5A. Were there any questions?
that's all right.
That
No questions.
no, okay. The next item is 5C, 0 Vestal Street. It's a garage. Carrie had sent over an email regarding that. I indicated that the property is not on the registry. The next one is 5D, 656 Harvard Street. It's the attached garage to the house. The neighborhood is not on the register, or the neighborhood or any of the houses in it are not on the registry. I indicated that with Carrie. I do believe though that garage was an addition, and I'm 99.9% sure that house was designed by Maud Darling Parlin, who was the city's first female architect, and a lot of her work is not documented, and that could be a really good project down the line. But I believe it was just the garage that was just being taken down. The house has been recently renovated. And the next demolition intent was on 914 Hancock Street, and that's also a garage, and that too is not on the registry. So I put these on here just as they come in, even though they are not on the registry, but Carrie has the list, but just in case. because I know the list that we have online is not completely updated. There's a few little details that have to get added. A few houses were added. But these were not on the list.
It's good that we're being involved in this. This is
Right.
good. It gives us a chance to take a drive by and see what's going on and be up to date. That's good. Thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. Let's see. Next up is 6A. This is all correspondence. So I received another email from Carrie regarding 85 North Main Street. That's the Bank 5 building. The owners are going to be doing alterations to the modern addition to the building, not the historic component, which is the brick and white marble neoclassical structure. This is renovations to the modern addition. But I indicated that there's no preservation that I could find. I did a deed study, deed search on that. There's no deed restriction on that particular property. I'm not really overly wowed by the design. I think I forwarded it all to you. It's very bright, but we don't really have jurisdiction on that because it's not a local historic district.
It's such a
But
shame
it's
because
being
most
attached to a historically
It is,
pleasing
but
building.
they could have designed it so
A
that
little
it's
bit better.
blended in with the neighborhood better, especially
Yeah.
it's the attached building across
Right.
the street from the Fall River Public Library and some
Mhm.
other great buildings right across the street. So it is kind of disheartening to see such a
Is-
vast
Right.
difference in buildings.
Is there any way that, I know that's not mandatory, but is there any way that they could present to us what they're doing and why? And see if we could maybe massage some of that to be more compliant?
I don't think so because we don't, like I said, we don't have, I mean, we can ask, but they're
I'd say it
not.
would have to be just, but because Bank 5 is such a good, a large part of the community, they would probably be willing to come in here, let their architect make a presentation, we've seen in the past where people have accommodated and made some changes to lighten, I won't say a burden, but lighten the effects that it will have. So,
Yeah, I mean, we could reach out and see if they can present. But I mean,
it's
they're
right
not-
downtown in the heart of the city.
they're not required to meet with
The
us, but
sign does say values inclusion.
Mhm.
Yeah, we could try an
try.
outreach.
Can we
that
share the guideline for commercial buildings?
Yeah, perhaps
I
share it
know.
with them. It makes you wonder. I mean, you look at it and it's just a cold, harsh looking building in comparison to its neighbors.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, I would almost want them to just leave the building alone because right now it's that just regular brick color. It's a brick red color. And yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure the reasoning for the remodel, but
Is there any apprehension on your part about making a phone call and seeing if they would come down? Or
my only concern is just because we don't have purview on that. If because the downtown district is only on the national register, that it really doesn't prohibit them from doing anything unless they want to.
Exactly. But what I'm relating to is just out of the goodness of their heart, they could say, well, sure, we'll make a few concessions to try and keep the culture. It is, downtown within the city, within that area. So it's worth a try.
I can ask. I think I have the woman's email. If not, I can ask Carrie for it. And I can ask her about that.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if they could just share their insight, why they're going in this direction.
Right.
Why they chose this direction versus, blending in with the
Right.
surrounding buildings.
Yeah,
Mhm.
if they're making changes, then why are they going more left than right?
Mhm. Okay. All right, I'll reach out. I'll see if I have the email, or if not, I can get the contact information from Carrie.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. The next item was 6B, the S course block. So we've talked about this a few times in the past several meetings. So the building has officially been included into the National Register. So that's always good to hear. That actually leads me into item 6C, which is the downtown Fall River Historic District expansion. And regarding the Gorse block, so that was a letter that I received from the Massachusetts Historical Commission regarding the inclusion. So it's now officially on the register. Regarding the district expansion, so I did not realize that the downtown National Register District only really comprised some buildings on Bedford Street and some on North Main Street up to the library. It did not include most, if not all, buildings on South Main Street. It may have included, I think, the Academy building. So I had a meeting with Ken Fiola and Sarah Page. Ken Fiola from the Bristol County Economic Development, and Sarah Page is the Redevelopment Authority. And they had hired a preservation planner by the name of Andrew Robley, and out of Auburn, New York. And he is working with them on expanding the National Register District southward to include the commercial buildings on South Main Street. And part of this is as redevelopment occurs downtown, it allows the building owners to capture historic tax credits. And also being on the National Register allows them to also capture CPC funding as well, or CPA funding.
Could we, in conjunction with that, form a historic district for ourselves? Expand into that area. In other words, they could double fold what they're doing.
Oh, a local historic district?
Yes.
We could. I did ask Andrew about that, if that was if they were looking at also creating a local historic district. He said that did not come up yet. And certainly that process can work alongside while a National Register district is in the process. That can certainly work alongside that.
Yeah, I would hope so. And that again would let us get into part of this expansion and again, start to protect some of this great architecture. And North Main Street has some beautiful buildings and some really nice frontage, And
And that's
nice to maintain and not throw up texture 111 with a little paint,
Mhm.
So I'm
Yeah.
curious as to what prompted this. So he was hired to expand the downtown district
Mhm.
south, so that those buildings can qualify for CPC funding.
Right, because right now it just consists of North Main Street and parts of Bedford Street. So they want this to continue down South Main Street to
So, like, who's got this interest? Because I mean, I'm excited that somebody wants to.
I know this kind of came out of, it felt like it kind of came out of nowhere. So they're doing right now, there's they're creating in the process of creating a district on 3rd Street, and those would encompass the buildings that Tony Cordero owns currently on 3rd Street. Those are the Slade Company, is it Allen Slade Company, and the what is it, the women's,
Garment workers, yeah.
thank you, Garment Workers Building.
This would allow them to have tax credits, so it's kind of self-serving.
Yeah, it allows the bill. Yeah, I know. It allows the building with South Main Street. Because right now there's nothing really. There's nothing designating any of the buildings on South Main Street. I believe some of them are on the city's registry, but nothing on the National Register. So that would allow any developer really to come in to tap historic tax credits, which it's not a bad thing, because they would have to go through the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation, and that's scrutinized a lot.
A restriction on them.
Oh, absolutely. So and that's we like preservation restrictions. So So that's kind of, I don't, it kind of felt like it did come out of nowhere. But right now the plan was to go the length of South Main up to about, there's a shift where there's no commercial buildings in between Kennedy Park and I want to say, I can't remember the name of the street. I want to say Williams. There's that funny little triangle on South Main Street. It's a steep hill, and I can't
Oh, I know
remember
what you're
the.
talking about, yeah.
Yeah, so right about there. So it would encompass most, I mean, really all of the downtown commercial corridor. And then also there was a question whether or not to include Government Center, which, fun little fact, it is approaching 50 years. That's kind of the benchmark for historic structures, but you know, I guess it is representative of urban renewal, and that is historic now. So, which it seems odd to say that, but we, you know, that would include that. Otherwise, because if you don't include Government Center, what happens is you're going to have a distinct two separate districts. You're going to have the north part of downtown. You're going to have the south end of downtown. So including Government Center would link the two different districts. So this the meeting was really just to kind of explore. The planner has a pretty aggressive timeline, which I had, that was in the folder that I had sent to everyone. It looks like he wants to almost not fast track, but he's planning, he does want to meet with our board at one point. So the research end of it will be occurring likely by beginning of December, going through February 2023. I believe he's submitting the letter to the Mass Historical Commission. That will be by early December. And once meetings with building owners, he has to have public hearings. All of that will likely lead him to acceptance by September of 2023. It seems pretty aggressive, considering how many buildings there are. I believe he said it was somewhere in the neighborhood of adding 65 buildings to the National Register, which that's pretty significant. So we will likely be involved. We will be involved in this. The National Register process is a lot more tedious than a local historic district. A lot of the buildings have already been surveyed, but back in the 80s, and those forms don't count anymore because the research standards have changed. Yeah, I believe he's going to be in Fall River next month, I think. So we will likely be meeting with him next month. It's exciting. And you know, it's great to have you know, to have all downtown included, especially with, you know, the trains coming in. There's a lot of development going on, and you know, I maybe with what Rick had said regarding creating a local historic district, that would give us some purview on design. And it's not out of the question for downtown to have a local historic district. Providence is a good example. Actually all of the downtown area of Providence is a local historic district. So that is reviewed. So that's, you know, we can certainly do that here in Fall River. And have a little bit more say as to what's going on with storefronts, with, for example, Bank 5, what they want to do to the exterior.
Mhm.
So, so that was that item. Any questions on?
Well, just a thought, Jason. How far is South Main? Because one of the concerns I've had over the recent decade or so is St. Anne's Church.
Mhm.
And it seems to me that from Middle Street to St. Anne's Church, all the way through the park, all the way probably down to the Taunton River, that is an incredibly important area,
Mhm.
and an extraordinarily beautiful area. So I don't know if you're in your discussions somewhere in there, is anybody bringing up St. Anne's Church?
So actually, at our meeting, Ken did, so his feeling was to have the district expand all the way down to include St. Anne's. Now, the planner that we were meeting with, because there's such a shift with the buildings, it goes from commercial almost instantly into residential. And when you talk about downtown, that's not necessarily downtown. But I had suggested that that's a good candidate for a completely separate district altogether that encompasses St.
Exactly.
Anne's and Kennedy Park and the neighborhoods around it. That's certainly a candidate for.
St.
s-
Anne's, the neighborhood, the
Mhm.
overlook,
Yep.
it's extraordinary.
And the other reasoning too regarding downtown was because we're going over the different the history of downtown. Up until the 1856, the state line ran right just south of Columbia Street. So what is now where St. Anne's and Kennedy Park, that was all technically part of Rhode Island at one point up until 1856. And then the state lines changed. So the really old part of downtown is along South Main from Columbia Street to running up to North Main Street. So I think that's the area that he's going to be focusing in on. But no, I recommended that that should be a completely separate district around St. Anne's.
It's also something to consider that it's significant in terms of French immigration.
Mhm.
And I say that because looking at Columbia Street and looking at the Portuguese settlement there, and the preservation of culture, Portuguese culture in Fall River, we don't want to lose the French either. And St. Anne's is probably the only French site left, because we don't have Eastern Avenue anymore, and we don't have Notre Dame, we don't have the Blessed Sacrament, we don't have those iconic French religious and cultural areas. St. Anne's is it.
Mhm.
And if we don't rally around that, we're going to lose that capability.
Mhm. So I have a follow-up meeting with him next month. So I will ask about, because I believe Ken was pretty adamant that we try to do something regarding around St.
Oh,
Anne's.
yeah.
So whether that creates another district, I don't know how that plays into their plans, but no, that makes total sense. Any other questions on that? Okay. All right, so the next item is 6D, that's 244 Grove Street. The house, Carrie had reached out regarding the property because I think somebody was interested in buying it, and wanted to know if there's any restrictions. I did mention that it is on the city's registry, and I believe it's also part of the Lower Highlands National Register District. So because of that, if they wanted to demo the house, that there's a 6-month delay per ordinance. But that's all I had on that one. 6E, which is the Sanford Spinning Mill, a land lease. I was contacted by a woman who the company that she works for is looking to do a land lease. So they are looking to see if they can take the mill down. Now, I'm not familiar with how that whole process works with the land lease, but I did mention to her that we had just recently approved a letter of support for that structure for historic tax credits. There's a rehabilitation plan in place for the building. So I'm not sure what changed. I did ask her if there was any change with the plans that we were given. It was supposed to be, I believe, an apartment building. And I think the owners are just trying to explore other options. So I'm not sure what that's about, but I did indicate that the building will have the ordinance, the 6-month demolition delay. So I don't know if we'll see more of that soon, but let's see. And then 6F, which is the Duval Mills. I received an email from a woman who works for Sage Environmental. They're doing a phase 1 environmental site assessment. So she was looking for information, any historical documents that exist on the property. I did send over the file from the Mass Historical Commission, and the inventory form. And also, I had included in the email, I had gave her the email to the registrar over at the Fall River Historical Society. So she's looking for any additional information. But it sounds like the building is, bless you. It does sound like the building may be explored for rehabilitation. So that's huge, because that mill building is in dire need of work, and it's significant. I think it's one of the oldest mill complexes in the city, and it's the only one in the city that has a mansard roof, which is pretty important too architecturally. So I was pretty pleased to see that something's happening over there. Well, it remains to be seen what happens. What's that?
Be great to have that restored. That's a
Such
beautiful
an
building.
It is such a beautiful building and such an important corner too, considering that all the mills in that area are gone. Yep, the big one was the Borden Mill, I think, it was Arlen's at one point with the 2 towers. All of the mill complexes around there are gone, and that's the last surviving one. So,
Yeah, and they knocked down the one that Mason's was right across the street, the granite one, and
Yep.
now we have our Stop and Shop.
Mhm. So fingers crossed, this is a good project. So so that's that I have for correspondence. Next up, item 7A, the long-awaited design guidelines. So Dominique had sent over, I know, very exciting. Dominique had sent over the final sections. And I'm just gonna minimize my screen real quick. So, and I had sent over all of the final draft that she had. And so I don't know how you want to do this. I know we had approved some in the past, but I think would it make more sense just to go down the line? If there's any questions, and to go by section and approve?
Yeah, I
Review
think
and approve?
you could just approve each section if you want, or
Okay. Because I know we had approved some in the past, but
yes, we have.
yeah, and that was before I came on to as chair, so I don't have that in front of me as to which ones we did approve, but these seem more official. So
Jim Soul from the Preservation Society did point one problem on the guidelines for exterior maintenance.
okay,
It says City of Portsmouth.
okay. All right, so that's section 2.
Hmm.
I don't know if I actually even noticed that. um
Going down to the main information and you're not even looking at that.
I know. And I was looking right down, going right through the body of the packet, not even looking at the top. All right. Were there any? So do we want to go with
Well,
section
I'm
1?
thinking if everybody had
Do you
the
want to just
opportunity-
take one section at a time, ask and take a vote on it, and approve or disapprove or make changes?
Or as a whole?
As a whole would be fine also.
Yeah, we can do that. So do we have any questions or concerns on section 1? And that is the introduction. I think there were some highlights that she had to fill in, but this is just the final draft, but I had no questions or concerns on the first one. I know on page What page am I on?
Well, I'll make a motion
Five.
to approve section 1, the intro.
Okay, I have a motion to approve section 1.
I'll
Do I have a
second.
Okay. A motion and a second to approve section 1 of the design guidelines. All in favor?
I
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, so section 2, we're going to address the city of Portsmouth. Oops. But I
Yeah,
didn't have,
once that's fixed, that's the only thing she has
Yeah.
to fix. Otherwise, I don't have any concerns.
no, I had no concerns. I am loving all the imagery that she has included.
Yeah,
And she has what's really cool too, the different materials, which is huge, because we're constantly looking at, there's always a need to,
and maintenance,
and maintenance.
importance of maintenance.
Yep. So,
Love that.
yeah, this is great.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have no questions on that. Any other questions, concerns on section 2, aside from that one little typo on the top?
No.
Okay.
I'll motion to approve it once with that changed.
We can make a motion to approve as it is, with that one little caveat.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve with just the change of City of Portsmouth to City of Fall River.
okay.
Mhm.
And I'll second.
All right, motion and a second to approve section 2, pending the edit from City of Portsmouth to City of Fall River. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right. Next up is section 3, which is roofing. Any questions, concerns on roofing?
I see a familiar house on there. Right, Connie, isn't that your house?
Oh,
It's good that it's a
yeah.
good example, not a bad example.
Mhm.
I don't know
No,
if you
this-
noticed, but the Dr. Fisk house on Pine Street has a new roof with
That's
the
excellent.
resin, the resin's shingles that look like slate.
That's great.
Oh,
Nice.
it looks awesome.
What was, out of curiosity, what is the price comparison to that with slate? And slate is expensive in general. But or not necessarily the price comparison, but the longevity.
Slate?
Or yeah, like, or what's the maybe not the price comparison, but the longevity between the two? Because slate's pretty long, but it's also it's cost prohibitive.
They're both over 100 years.
Oh, they're both over 100 years. Jim's.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay,
The
that's
slate,
fantastic.
slate will last hundreds of years. The problem with that is they used copper nails. And you had corrosion and galvanic action of sorts between the materials and the atmosphere. And that's what gives way. But today you've got new nailing materials that you put a slate roof there, and you can use some materials now that will not give way to corrosion. It'll last forever. I mean,
Shingles,
hundreds.
shingles, as we know, don't last forever. That's
Right.
25,000.
Mm-mm.
And then the resin ones is 75,000, which lasts well over 100 years.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and real slate is about 150,000 and also lasts well over. 100
Wow.
years.
Double the cost.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
yeah.
Hmm.
I
And
had
it was-
repaired last year by a slate company, a small leak I had in near one of the stacks. And I asked them about, looking around and like the the idea about not having slate. And he basically told me that my roof would last me forever.
Mhm.
So he said, as long as you maintain it.
Mhm.
So I mean, anyone that does have slate, it's
Mhm.
best to just maintain it.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Okay.
But it looks great, so it's hard to
Mm.
see if you're driving up the street, but there'll be pictures posted and stuff, so.
Excellent. Very exciting.
It is exciting. That neighborhood does need a nice shot in the arm.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Very good.
Okay,
Um,
so back to the, sorry about that.
No, it's a nice segue. But yeah, do we have any questions, concerns on roofing?
No.
Okay. Can I get a motion if we're content with it?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we accept the article on roofing.
I'll second that.
All right. I have a motion and a second to approve section 3 roofing. All in favor?
I,
Excellent. All right. Next up, section 4 exterior woodwork. Are there any questions on that?
And we were very fortunate in being able to look at these months prior to and get whatever we needed corrected. So
Mhm.
this is going through very quickly, and
Yeah.
I would make a motion that we accept that article for section
Okay.
4.
Great.
I'll second that.
All right. I have a motion and a second to approve section 4 exterior woodwork. All in favor?
I,
Aye. Okay. All right. Next is section 5 masonry and stucco. Feel like this one we just recently reviewed, maybe in the last few months. So I think this is just basically she had to add in her images. Any questions on this one?
No, I'll make a motion that we approve.
Okay. I have a motion.
Okay, I'll second.
All right. I have a motion and a second to approve section 5 masonry and stucco. All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Okay. Section 6 windows and doors.
Bad. I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
All right. I have a motion and a second to approve section 6 windows and doors. All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Section 7 is for site elements. Any questions or concerns on this section? No?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Again, okay, I'll second.
All right. I have a motion and a second to approve section 7 site elements. All in favor?
Aye.
I,
All right. And we have section 8, which is new construction. Any questions, concerns on this one?
No?
No?
Okay. Make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve section 8 new additions. All in favor?
I,
Aye.
I,
All right. And in the folder that I sent everyone, I don't think I had in there the commercial.
oh, it was in there.
Mm-mm.
Oh.
It wasn't
no.
there?
No, sorry. We had it separately.
We had
yeah,
it separately.
Yeah.
Yep, I did send that to everyone separately. Just wasn't in that folder. Were there any questions, concerns on that section?
I didn't have any, no. I make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
All right, have a motion and a second to approve the section on commercial structures. All in favor?
I,
Aye, okay. So I think that's it for the design guidelines. Right, those are all the sections. I'm not missing any. Oh, Jim's dancing in the background.
Did the exterior woodwork?
We did that one already.
Okay. Geez, Dancing, he's happy.
Yes, this is exciting. So I will let Dominique know that we are all approved and ready to go. Just that one caveat on section 2. This is not Portsmouth. Excellent. Okay, cool.
Awesome.
That's exciting.
Whew,
Exciting.
Boy,
So
wow.
I don't know what I'll have to find out what the time, what the turnaround is, to get the,
Well,
have it
it'll
all.
certainly be, Jason, a lot shorter than the 2 years it's been to get here.
I know, this is exciting.
And that's just when the historic commission got it. Like I
Right.
feel like this has been going on way too long.
Way too long.
Yeah.
And I know the hiccup that she had with the payment, that I think finally went through too, so thank God.
Okay.
Yeah. Good. All right, so I know we jumped around.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. We still have a meeting.
Yeah, we saw the meeting. I think, so aside from that, moving around, so the next is, we had no, that was basically it. Open discussion. So do we have anything for open discussion at all?
Well,
no,
we should update on the gas meters. Are we not updating? Are we not?
We'll have to put that, because I have to advertise that on the agenda, so that would have to probably make it to the next agenda. So I will put down gas meters on the next agenda. Rick, you look like you're gonna say something.
No, I was just thinking of the resignation and getting someone on board quickly with the CPC from the Historic Commission, that's all.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
you think we have to wait a month or so before we can do that?
I think so, because the resignation came to us. It hasn't been on file, it has not been filed yet with
Okay.
clerks, so I just want to nail down that process, but we can do
Sure.
that at the next meeting.
Sure.
And then what else? Oh, no, I think that's it.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha covered.
Yep. So great. So our next meeting is on Tuesday, December 20th at 6 p.m. Right before the holidays. So I think we're all done tonight.
Could
that?
we bump that a week prior? So that it's not so close to the holidays?
Yeah, let me, I will find out. I will ask, I can ask Alex to see what, because we can do virtual up until the end of March 2023. That's per Governor Baker. So I can ask to see what dates are available, if we could do the Tuesday before, or anytime that I could get some dates and send them out. We might end up having to meet earlier anyways, if we meet with Ms. Corey from the Union Mill Complex. So we may end up having to meet a little earlier.
Okay.
Okay. Great. So I think that's it. May I have the time is now 7:36. This is a long one for us. May I have a motion to adjourn at 7:36?
All right, and may everyone have a nice Thanksgiving,
You too.
and I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I second that motion.
Okay. All right. I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
And we can
Right.
still get to Jeopardy.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone. This was a great night.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Thank you.
Happy
you.
Thanksgiving.